Yeah, let's talk
Um,
about that. You want to
yeah.
walk? I know it's emotional for you, so will you walk me through
Yeah.
how the Willow Grant came to be?
Yeah. So Carlos and I got married super young, I feel like for people nowadays. But I wanted to be a mom. And like we were obviously in the financial position that it was like made sense if we wanted to start a family, we could. And I was like, let's, I'm excited to start a family. Let's do it. I probably would have started a family with him 6 months into dating if he would have let me. I was like, but it was just like I was like, I'm good to go. And so he was like, all right. And he knew how much I wanted a kid. And so I think he was on board. And so we got pregnant really quick. And we like went in for our appointment. I was like a little bit past 11 weeks. You know how baseball is. You like it takes forever to get on a schedule where you can both be somewhere. And we went in there and like the baby didn't have a heartbeat. And I knew what the baby was supposed to look like. I think that was like probably one of the more traumatic things is like when she like went over the baby, I could see the baby. And I was like, I had been hyping it up for Carlos because I knew he was scared. Like any man with their child, like for the first time, I knew he was like nervous about it all. So I was hyping it up. And then I saw, and like I already was crying before she was like, I'm having trouble finding the heartbeat. And then I like really knew. I was like, something's wrong because I don't know. I don't think you were there that year, but we had like 5 miscarriages on the team that year. And 2 weeks before that, one of my girlfriends had a molar pregnancy. And I just remember crying with her in the stands because like I'm a super empath. And I just remember like I was pregnant and I was like, I cannot imagine having to go through that. Like that is such a nightmare in my mind and for me. And I don't know if that was God like preparing me like for that thought to be in my soul already to like that's a reality for people, but I just don't know that I ever processed that that could be me. I was so sick. Everyone kept telling me, when you're sick and people are like, oh, it means your baby's healthy, like they kept telling us that, they kept telling me that, and I was like, okay, everything is going to be worth it, great. I'll just puke my guts up, it's fine, I'm fine as long as I get the baby, I'm good. um, and so they were like, oh yeah, no, the baby doesn't have a heartbeat. And I was just a mess. But we get back in the car. Like, they had taken my blood and stuff because she was like, "Let's get some answers." I'm like, "There's the answer is my baby's dead." Like I'm always 0 to 100, so I was like very distraught. And I get a phone call and they're like, "Hey, like your HCG levels are through the roof. Like we don't know if we just missed another baby, and like you have underdeveloped twins." And so it was like super excited, super traumatized, back to like I guess cautious optimism. And I go back in later because they were like, let's see. And there was no other baby. And they're like, all right, we got to schedule you for a DNC. So we go through all of that. And the woman who really probably was the start of the Willow Grant, I wish I knew her name and who she was. But I walked in for my procedure and I was just a mess. Like from the moment I walked in, I wouldn't even let Carlos go in with me because I was so irrational. Like get in there, they put me in the back room, they put me in the room with a baby scale. So I'm just staring at this baby scale. And I looked at the lady and I was like, can we get this baby scale out of my room, please? She felt terrible. So then I have another nurse come in to like start my IV. And she was like, she put her hand on my hand and she's like, honey, I know you're not okay right now, but I've been where you are and you're going to be okay one day. And I remember thinking in my head, I was like, I don't feel better, but I feel minute comfort in the fact that you have experienced this and kind of have felt what I feel and you're okay. Like I'm going to make it. And so I think that was the start of the Willow Grant because in my mind I thought how can I like give people comfort? How can I make people feel not alone? How can I help people start a family? And that was the whole beginning. So obviously we go on, I get pregnant on Mother's Day. I end up miscarrying that kid too. I like thought it was a sign and I was like, oh, what how special. And then that got ripped away from me. That felt pretty bad. I was in a pretty dark place for a while after that. Carlos had like the shoulder stuff, Tommy John. He was going through a lot. I was going through a lot. We were like building a house. I was what are we doing? Like, it was just chaos after chaos. But again, I guess I somewhat thrive in it, even though I was mildly depressed. But we ended up going to a doctor in Chicago, Dr. Brian Kaplan. He was like, if you don't want to have miscarriages anymore, he's like, obviously there's chromosomal errors, like IVF will work. So we were set to start that, and then I get pregnant with Willow. She's totally healthy and totally fine, but I think just for us having the position that we have, I wanted to make people like knew, like everybody goes through this. Like you're not alone. It's very common. I had no clue how common it was.
Yeah.
I think
It was a taboo discussion there for a long time.
it's super taboo. Even my grandma. I mean, my grandma had had a miscarriage, and my until I had one, my dad had no clue. Like she had never talked about it. She had never told people. She's like, it was just one of those things like you did not speak about it.
Well,
Like
I think
it
women
was
always want to think, well, this is my fault. My body's failing me. And, like,
yes.
we
You
always take the
do.
blame for things.
100%. You feel, I mean, I like look at Carlos and he's this, got all of this stuff going for him. I'm like, my singular goal in this moment is to give us a family, and I can't do that. And I just felt like my whole life, I really didn't fail it a lot. I think both of us, it's funny because both of us, our whole lives, had really great parents who really set us up for success, who pushed us to do big things. And we always fought to like win and do well. And then we get into the adult world together, and like he has these surgeries and these struggles, and I'm over here and I like have done, and what I always tell people, I'm like, tell me what you think you did wrong, because I'm going to tell you I didn't do it and I still had problems. Like I did not take birth control. I took a prenatal for a year before I tried. I did blood work before we tried. Like I was so hell bent on like, I mean, and that's just like my personality, right? Like check all the boxes, make sure everything's right. And then we still have all these problems. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? And so I think just that's where I just love talking to people about it, because I want people to have that comfort of like, it's not you. Even though it feels like it is in that moment, you feel like a failure and you feel so frustrated. Like it is so out of your control. And it's like you just have to be proactive. Like right now, for women's health, everything is reactive. Like there's no proactivity, there's no studies, there's no fighting for like research. The amount of research, they don't even know why women go into labor.
Now that feels wrong.
Don't you think that's crazy? Like they don't even know like at a cellular level what's going on with your body. Like there 11% of the national healthcare budget goes to women.
Are men in
3%
charge of
goes to,
this?
yeah.
Go figure. How'd I know?
I know, but then only 3% of it is going to reproductive health, and almost all of it's going to IVF because it's profitable. So we don't understand like your egg reserves, how to like better ways to check that stuff. How do we know? Like there are so many things that we could do to push the envelope because we have so much technology. They're just not doing it. And so I think now the rhetoric is changing. People are talking about it. They're talking about their fertility journeys. I think that's going to be probably what pushes it more than anything, because you just people have to push. Women have to push. I mean, honestly,
And
it's just the
reproductive
truth.
rights are a huge topic right now too. Like
Huge,
everyone's shining a
huge.
light on people's or
And I
women's
and I and
bodies
I
and
honestly love it because it has to be talked about. Like otherwise, if you don't talk about it, it just gets swept under the rug. The same way my grandma's miscarriage got swept under the rug for every single one of her children until her 23-year-old grandchild had a miscarriage. Like that's crazy to me. No one ever talked about it. So super, as much as I always tell people like the journey was like truly a nightmare for us because you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like we were young, we had all of these things going for us. Um, but in that moment, there was so much like dark. And so I'm like, I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. I wouldn't want to go through it again, but I am thankful it's given us something to help other people with, because we are blessed to be in a position where it's like, what do you care about? Like, how do you want to make a difference in the world? I think for our children too, one day I want them to see what's important in life. And it's not how many cars you have. It's how many lives did you impact? How many people did you make feel not alone? How many people did you make smile? Like those things are what matter, not the stuff.
they're a part of your legacy now. So that's precious. You have 3 beautiful children.